Yeah, I'm starting it right now.
I'm not sure. You made me the host. Okay. I wish you would have started it earlier so that I'm not under this pressure right now. Okay. I'm going to start letting people in.
Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. Hello, everybody. We're just getting started, so just be patient. We're going to be letting a bunch of people in. I would ask everybody to mute your microphones if you could. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And if you have questions that you think of along the way, you can post them into the chat and I'll make sure that your questions get answered as we get moving along. My name is Stuart Hall. I'm Doreen Hall's husband, and I also am the technical administrator of the website Paloma Piano. And I help her with all things technical and all things logistical in that area. So anyway, welcome to the webinar. I guess we have, it's 1 o'clock now Eastern time, and we have a number of people in. We have a total of 10 people in. I think there may be more joining us as we get going, but I think, Doreen, you might want to start with some opening comments, and we can get started as you see fit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I think it's supposed to go down to -10 tomorrow. So I'm kind of glad to be staying in at this time. And I've done this webinar before, but I keep learning new things and trying to update it as I go. And I plan some more webinars this year. I've been teaching piano since 1984 when I got out of college. So it's been a long time. And I've also been in the classroom and just picked up some tips along the way about trying to get kids to practice, because I know that's one of the biggest frustrations that I've had over the years is when my students practice, I feel so happy and things go along so smoothly. But when you just have kids that come in week after week, or adults that come in week after week and they're not prepared, the job gets really heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and I have a couple books that I've authored, and one of them is The Happiest Piano Teacher in Town. Let's see if I can find the cover. Oh, that's not the cover. Let's see. And the other one is a preschool book. So a lot of my ideas come out of this book, which is on Amazon.com. I'm going to go back to chapter 7. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up a screen share so we can see some slides, so it's not just me being a talking head. And I'm really glad you're all here. Sharing is not turned on.
Okay, just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I just wanted you to know that this webinar is being recorded, and so I believe the chat also gets recorded. So if you are comfortable with putting things into the chat and just asking questions there, go ahead and do that. But just remember that this is a recorded session. Also, we will be doing a question and answer at the end of the webinar, so you can feel free to ask some questions then as well.
Yeah, and I need the host to turn on sharing so I can share my screen.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. We switched hosts so he could be the host instead of me. So we're going to talk about just a lot of little things that I do to get my students to practice. Most of them are pretty good about it. And here is my screen.
I think it's on now, Doreen.
It's on. And here we go.
Yep, I can see it.
And there we go. Can everybody hear me, I hope?
Let me know if you can't hear or if you're having
trouble with something, you can't see something, type it into the chat. We always do these on Zoom, but they change things, so sometimes things get a little wonky on Zoom. And we'll take some questions about that too at the end. So this is welcome to the webinar. Practice makes progress. We used to say practice makes perfect, but I guess that's not the thing anymore. No, I think you can play perfectly at times. I had a student say to me the other day, you can never be perfect, but we all know that there's artists and there's times when you actually can play a perfect piece and your music comes out perfect. Not to say that we're perfect people. Okay, I'm Doreen Hall. I've been teaching for over 35 years. I have PalomaPiano.com, and now PianoParents.net is part of PalomaPiano.com, because I found I just didn't get a lot of parents going to the parents website, so I kind of combined it all. So the posts that I used to have on PianoParents.net are now at Paloma.Piano.com, and they're free. You can see them. You don't even have to sign up as a free member. So if you want to go through any of the blog posts or get any ideas, I have some guest posters on there that Sarah Buckley and some other people have done guest posts on, Marlene Moore. And if you want to take any of their posts, send it to your parents or send it to your friends or just read them, that's fine. Those are my two books, The Happiest Piano Teacher in Town and The Ultimate Preschool Activities Book. And I'm in the process of just writing a whole book about practicing. And housekeeping. This webinar will last about 45 minutes. Type any questions into the chat as they come up into your mind, and we will answer them at the end. And then we'll record this, and you can request a link. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have a special offer on the website. That's not what the webinar is all about. There'll be lots of information. It's not going to be a big sales pitch, I promise. And all the graphics on here were created using Canva.com. So I like to give them credit. I do pay a membership to Canva, but they're fantastic, and the artists on there are wonderful, and they're just great. This is our regular price. Some of you guys are already members. Some of you guys have a special membership price, but we'll talk about that later. So let's get on. with the webinar and get started. So what is practice exactly? And so the definition, I looked it up, is to perform or work at something repeatedly so as to become proficient or trained by repeated exercise. And practice is essential to anything that you want to do that you want to get good at. I recently had to switch to Dorico from Finale. As many of you know, Finale decided to have a Finale and not be Finale anymore. So we had to go to a new music notation software. And I noticed that if I don't kind of get on Dorico every day and learn how to use this new software, I'm not good at it. If I do it once a week, I forget stuff, I forget the keystrokes, so I have to practice. So it's kind of a good refresher for me. So we do have to practice, and believe it or not, you know, people come into piano lessons and not all of them have that expectation that they're going to have to practice on a regular basis. So something we have to kind of educate them about. And this is why does it matter that students practice? We talked about it. It's essential for progress. You're not going to progress if you don't practice. I always tell my students, if you went to school 30 minutes a week, what would that be like? And most of them are like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I wish I went to school 30 minutes a week. I'm like, do you think you would learn anything? You probably wouldn't learn much. So it's essential for progress. Progress is essential for job satisfaction. If the students don't practice, the job is just a real drag. To have kids come in week after week and, you know, put your first finger on C, a half note gets 2 beats, it's just really, really depressing, and it gets very heavy trying to do that. And then it's also essential for student retention. Most of my students I have for 10 years or longer. My longest student I had for 14 years. I'm now in Cleveland 8 years. I've got a bunch of kids hitting the 8-year mark. When they are making progress, they don't want to quit. Their parents don't want them to quit. It's important for your reputation. That's how you get referrals. People hear your students play. Oh, wow, they're really good. Who's your teacher? That gets you there, you know, more people. So you really want to have them practice. And for me, it's an ethical thing too. You know, I don't want to just keep people on as dead wood and have parents paying me money and I know their kids aren't practicing and making progress. So it's a little catch-22. You know, we all have a business to run. It's not that easy since COVID, things are harder. In the space, a lot more people have jumped into the space, and there's just a lot less money to go around, I think, with a lot of people. So we also have a business to run. So it's not like, you know, I'm independently wealthy and I can say, well, I'm just going to, you know, get rid of people that don't practice. For me, it comes to being honest. And if a parent asks me, you know, how is my child doing? I'll just be honest. Well, she could be doing more practicing. I'd like to see her making more progress. And a lot of parents will, you know, a few parents, not a lot. I'll have parents tell me, that's fine. I just want her to have the musical experience. I want her, she likes you. I just want her to come to the lesson. And as long as they're happy with what they're doing, and I can teach the students something and we can make some progress and we can click personality wise, for me, I'm fine with that. You know, as long as we're clicking along and I feel like I'm being honest about what's going on. So that's the thing. So part 1 to get students to practice is the setup. You have to set things up. And you have to have the right tools for the job, just like anything else. So the first tool is you need to have a great teacher if you want to be a great student. And you're here, you care. We're all like in a learning process. None of us are perfect, and we're all learning something new. So you are a great teacher already. You have to have an instrument. You'd be really surprised how many people will call and say, do I need a piano? One person called me up. They literally had one of those toy pianos with like 8 keys on it. So we do have to let them know they need an instrument. At paloma.piano.com, I created a course called First 4 Before. So if they don't have an instrument, I give them this thing. There's activities to do, listening, stuff to do with the lesson, and some education. So they have 4 weeks to secure an instrument, which for me is at least a weighted digital 88-key keyboard or an acoustic piano in decent tunable condition. You need a supportive family, a family that's going to allow the child to practice, make sure they're going to have time to practice, not a family that's going to say don't practice, it's annoying, or the piano is in the TV room or something like that. We want to create clear, attainable goals. Motivation is a big one, and that's why you are so important, because you don't get that motivation from an app. You don't get that from just, you know, logging onto YouTube and watching synesthesia videos. That doesn't give, especially children, the motivation to do something daily. Having to face me every week gives my students motivation. Having recitals a couple times a year gives them motivation. Me talking to them and encouraging them gives them motivation. That's why I don't think we'll ever replace live teachers with AI or apps. They can be useful tools, but I don't think they're going to replace us and really help people get ahead. So that's important. And then also just having the right music and knowing what music to choose and how to get the kids and the students and the adult students into the right repertoire to help them progress. Goals and expectations. So it's important to discover what families and little musicians want to get out of piano lessons. So I always ask parents that too, because I really have had only a handful of people in my 30-something year career actually go and major in music. Most of my students who have graduated are now doctors and lawyers, and one of them is a forensic psychologist, a pharmacist. I have one student that's an opera singer in Germany, and a couple who are like music directors, but most of them don't go into music, so I want to know. But I also want to set it up so that if somewhere along the line they switch and they decide, you know what, I really do want to major in the piano, I want to give them those tools that they can do that. I don't want to sideline anybody and say, well, you're not taking it that seriously, your technique isn't that important. I want to make sure I'm doing the best I can for everybody. And then I also want to manage my expectations as a teacher. And we're on Facebook, and there's those prodigy students that you see on there, and there's some wonderful teachers who post their students. I don't post my students because my parents ask me not to, but there's, you see this and you say, wow, my students can play like that person. So I had just read this book and it was talking about just in life, managing your expectations. So, to have realistic expectations for the students that you have is also important. So you want to have that mission. In my book, I talk about having a studio mission statement so that you know what your mission is. My mission is to have my students become well-rounded musicians. So I like to teach them some jazz, some popular music, some classical music, teach them to play by ear and read. So I try to meld all those things in so that when they're older, they'll still be able to play. But people have different expectations and different missions for their studios. And you have to find your own. And then we want to just set everybody up for success. The Pygmalion effect says the greatest indicator of student success is the high expectations of the teacher. So if we have high expectations of our students, if I expect my students to do well, they usually do better. And let me tell you, I totally fell down on this last semester. I just got too easy on everybody. And I went to my granddaughter's Irish dance class. She's preparing for a fesh, that's a Irish dance competition. And her teacher was just like, do it again, da 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 da. And her teacher happens to be like the lead in Riverdance. So I'm listening to this and I'm going, I think I need to get a little bit harder on my students. I think I've been making it too easy for them. So I have to even just get myself into this frame of mind by doing a webinar or talking to some of you all and saying, what, I can really give them a little bit harder repertoire. I think I'm making it too easy for them because, I tend to slide back. I don't want to, crack on everybody too much, but it's funny because they've kind of all been coming up to the challenge. And I had one particular student who's just been kind of dragging along, and I'm like, listen, no more easy music for you. You're going to do this. And I jumped him ahead like 3 levels and he did it. So I was kind of surprised. So also I want to make it clear from the very beginning, if you're here, you have to have time to practice. If you know that you have soccer 7 days a week and you have no time to practice at all, then you need to wait until you have time to practice. So just to really make that just clear to families. And then it's important to get parents on board from the very start and to talk to them and educate them about what practicing is all about. Put it in my studio policy that I do expect students to practice. I review this with parents. We talk about it. What's their schedule like? What are we doing? And then to find a way to keep track of their progress. And for me, I just use a notebook. It's old-fashioned. I also have some papers on there. That you can download that have practice schedules and stuff. But I use an old-fashioned notebook on their side. On my side, I use a date book if I'm online, and I keep track of what they do, and then I make them write their assignments. For my in-person students, they bring in a notebook, and everything is in there so that we know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and that we'll get into that a little bit later in the webinar. And then this is really important to me too, is to create a musician mindset. And I'm also a choir director at the moment, and so that's also important when I work with my choir. I don't just I'm the musician and you're the choir. We're all musicians together. This is what we're doing. We're part of a special group, a special club to create that mindset that, as soon as you come in here, you are a musician. As soon as you play the first note, I might not be Lang Lang or Yu Zhu Wang, but I'm a musician, and you might not play as well as me, but you're a musician. So we're all musicians together. And when we have that mindset, it just kind of helps you to feel like you're just part of something bigger. And I had a student walk in last Friday with 4-inch nails, and I said, really? And she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, well, we have to make a sacrifice for our art. So I don't think she's going to come back with 4-inch nails next week, but it was fun for a week. So anyway, and then I have a magic word that I use all the time with myself and with my students, and that magic word is imagine. You know, imagine what it's going to be like. Oh, what grade are you in? I'm in 3rd grade. Imagine how good you're going to sound when you get to 8th grade. You know, that time goes by fast. And before you know it, you are in 8th grade. Or look at Susan. You see how she played at the recital? Well, she was in 3rd grade. She was like you. Now she's in 8th grade. Imagine how you're going to feel when you can get up and play that Chopin prelude, or you can get up and play that jazz tune. And so to keep them imagining, I recently took up a new project, which was playing the flute, and it's like a complete joke. I am not good at it at all. I just took it up last week. But you know what keeps me going? I imagine that one day I'm going to play the beginning of The Little Shepherd on the flute. So it kind of gets me to practice every day, because I'm imagining that I can get there, because I've seen people get there and I know it. So I try to keep that dream alive all the time, keep that energy going in that dream, like, wow, you are going to be able to do this. And since most of us have students who have gotten there, and even if you're a new teacher, you've seen that you've gotten there, we know that that's possible. So we do lots of things to keep that imagination going. And one of the things is that I read this book by this guy, Tom Zuba, and he talks about how words have power. So we always check how we talk about things. We don't say, oh, this music is confusing. Oh, this is hard. This is impossible. We use words like challenging or I can't do it yet. And it really does make a difference, because it keeps the kids and the adults into that mindset that they're getting there. It's working. You know, always pointing out the things that they're doing. And success begets more success. I think Charles Schwab said nobody ever got better by being criticized or knocked down, but by building people up. That's how we get them to be excited. And then the next part is just to be yourself, to be excited. One of the big things I talk about in my book is that we're not like every other teacher. I mean, it's really hard being a musician because everybody's so good. You know, you look at social media, you look at YouTube, you look at concerts, and you look at all these people and they're so good. Like, you could get really discouraged when you see everybody like that. But in a way, it's kind of like looking at all your friends when they take their vacation pictures. You know, everything's not all that good all the time, but you have to just be yourself. Whatever your strength is, you want to teach to your strengths and then work on bringing up the other things. I was classically trained, got out of school with a degree in music theory and composition and piano. I didn't know how to play in church. I didn't know how to play these things, but I've learned over the years. So you just got to be yourself. Be purposeful, be authentic, be generous, listen to people. I'm always generous with my time, talent, and treasure. I don't, you know, if I have something, I try to do what I can. I don't, you know, try to stick down to the minute. I really try to be fun and energetic, and don't compare myself to other people. It's hard not to. Don't compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to other people you see. Be yourself. You're a great teacher. You know, these students came to you for a reason, and they're sticking with you because they love you and because you're doing a good job. And teach to your strengths. And then see yourself as a professional. I mean, a lot of people, one of my teacher trainers when I was doing Suzuki teacher training, she said that one parent came up to her and said, "You're a piano teacher, isn't that like being an Avon lady?" Not that there's anything wrong with being an Avon lady, but I don't know why she would make that comparison. But a lot of people think, oh, you know, you're just a teacher. You're just a piano teacher. You're not a this or that. But we are professionals. You know, we don't have a lot of the things that we have to go through to be professionals in some ways that other professions do, but we are. So we want to let our students and our family know about our accomplishments, whatever it is that you do. You play at church, you're an accompanist, you're a composer, you have a degree, you're going through RCM, getting certifications, you've learned a new piece, whatever it is, play at recitals. Let them know about it so they can have that confidence in you. And also just, you know, I have to remind myself to be firm when necessary so that I can get paid on time, so that I can make sure my students respect me and treat me respectfully and address me that way so that we have that teacher relationship. And then I like to use a lot of humor too, because, you know, sometimes you get kids and they come in and they say, well, I don't want to do that. And I'll say, well, there's two of us in the room. One of us is the teacher. It's not you, so let's do it. So usually that works. And then the other thing is to take care of yourself. You know, come in to work well rested if possible. It's a hard job. It's harder than people think. They think it's easy. You just sit and teach piano lessons, but it's almost like for me, I feel like it's almost like my mind is not free, because all I think about when I'm teaching is what somebody else is doing. You know, I can't think about anything that I'm doing. I'm just thinking about what my student is doing, how their hand position looks, whether they're playing wrong notes, whether they need to work on this. So for 4 hours every afternoon, my brain is in somebody else's space. So it can be really tiring. And I think it burns a lot of calories too. So schedule breaks as needed. You know, if you need a 15-minute break in between just to do, you know, get yourself in a good space, do that. Make sure you eat and hydrate. And then nurture your own love of music. Don't forget that you're a musician too. Get involved with some music that you can play. Find a friend that plays another instrument and do some ensemble work. Learn some new pieces. Sign up for some of these things where you can learn a new genre or something. And remember that you love to play. That's why you're doing this. Because sometimes we can get so wrapped up into what our students are doing and they're playing that we don't make time for our own practicing and playing. And I think that's important too. Now we're on part 2, which is the practical side of getting people to practice. And I talk about this too in my book, and and there's a free infographic on the website. If you just sign in, you can get it and download it. But for me, and I have lots of experience teaching in a Montessori classroom, which is like grade, like 2 years old through 6, and all the way through high school in the public school system, teaching music, early childhood education, K through grade 3, and also Spanish. So I have a lot of, you know, experience with people of all ages, teaching people of all ages. So for me, this is what I've come up with. And preschool through grade 6, I need a parent to supervise, to age 6, not grade 6. I need a parent to supervise their practice. A parent kind of has to sit with them, show them what to do, telling a 5-year-old to go to the piano and practice by themselves. It doesn't usually get you anywhere. So my preschool parents know they're going to have to be a little bit more involved, even if they're online or in person, but I prefer to see my preschoolers in person. 7 through 11-year-olds, whether they're beginners or intermediates, they should be able to practice on their own, most of them. Of course, you have to, you know, the students are different, so you have to, you know, realize who you're working with. But at that point, I just want the parent to give the student a reminder, because those kids are going to forget. You know, you're 8, 9 years old, you're not going to remember to practice piano. So maybe, you know, after dinner, Johnny, go practice your piano. That's good. Once you get to middle school and up, I feel like in my studio, my students are on their own. I tell moms, I'm like, it's not your problem anymore. If Johnny doesn't practice, I'll deal with him when he comes to the lesson. Because I feel like what I want to do is turn them into better people and more independent, you know, students and people that can function in the world and do things on their own. So I don't want, you know, teenagers, parents don't have to, they get a break, tell them no problem. I'll deal with it. And then I always try to focus on tasks, not time. I had a friend, and if you've been on this webinar before, I think I talked about it before. I had a friend that lived around the block from me, and she took piano lessons, and I took piano lessons. And her mom's strategy was to set one of those, you know, kitchen timers for 30 minutes and make her sit at the piano for 30 minutes every day. My mom never did anything like that. I was older when I started playing, and she was just like, do it if you want to do it, don't do it if you don't want to do it. Well, she would sit there 30 minutes every day, and really, she didn't really do anything, because she would just, you know, not mindfully practice, but just get her 30 minutes in and then leave. I actually had a student years ago who had a digital piano, and he learned that he could record his song on there one time and then just hit the playback button while he read a book. So his mother thought he was practicing. So I try to focus on tasks, not time. And then I give my students choices all the time. Human beings love choices. Nobody likes to be dictated what to do. Even if you're 4 years old, you still like to have a choice. So my whole program is about choices. What would you like to work on first today? Do you want to do your scales first, or would you like to work on your method book piece first? What would you like to do this? What would you like to do this? And when it's time to play and practice, okay, what time do you have this week to practice? What's going on? What do you want to put down as your first piece? And I have a strategy that my goal is to get pieces finished onto the repertoire list and then go to the next thing. So I don't want to have a musical, you know, ADD. I say that's what I have. You know, I start playing this and then I hear this and then I open the book and do something else. And, you know, before you know it, I've got a whole bunch of things started and they're not finished. So I try to tell my students, I don't try to tell them, let's get things finished. So we plan together of how we can make that happen. So that will include review and stuff like that. And then we want to choose music that motivates to a point and plays to strengths and build skills. And we all know how to do that because we went through it when we were learning. So we know you have to play a certain amount of different things. So I do give them some choices. Usually I'll give them a choice between two pieces, which basically have the same goals, two Chopin mazurkas, or maybe two different Bach inventions, or whatever we're going to try to do. So we'll give them some choices. And I never ask them if they practiced. We know if they practiced, because it just kind of sets them up to say, yeah, or what does that mean? I practiced for 1 minute before I came here. So we just kind of review what happened this week. If it's not going well, what happened this week? What happened with that? And usually if you're nice about it, they'll be honest with you and tell you they were busy or they just didn't feel like doing it. I have one student, he's a wonderful student, had him for 7 years. I said, what happened to you this week? He said, oh, I was just a lazy bones. So I'm like, all right, well, let's try not to be lazy bones next week. And then I ask my students to evaluate themselves. So when they play, I ask them, how did you think that was? What did you think was good? What did you think could do better? Sometimes I record them. Sometimes kids will play miserably and I'll say, how did you think that went? And they'll say, great. And I'll be, really? So then we'll do a recording and, sometimes they'll still say great, but we try to work on that. And then sometimes they sounded pretty good and they'll, be really upset because they played one note wrong or something. So we try to work on that just so they get more engaged in what they're doing. It's their thing. The more I push it over to their side and make it their thing, the more they're going to be motivated to do it themselves. And then I always ask them what they were thinking about while they were playing that. And usually what they weren't thinking about was counting. So I can always tell when, the rhythm just goes out the window and they're not at all playing a minuet in 3/4. What were you thinking about? Well, what should I be thinking about? 1, 2, 3. So we work on that too. Ask them how their week went and things like that. And then just working with them to set goals. It's their goal. What do you want to do? Do you want to learn one piece this whole entire year? Is that what your goal is? What is your goal? Where do you want to be at this time next year? And week by week, how much time do you have to practice this week? How much of this would you like to try to get done this week? What can we do to make that happen? So we have like a concrete plan to go forward. And then what we were talking about prioritizing before is prioritizing to finish repertoire, improve skills, and have ready repertoire. What is the point of playing the piano? I always ask my students, what is the point? The point is that you can play something on the piano. If you're always working on a new piece and you forgot the last piece that you learned because you haven't practiced it, you can never play anything. So having a repertoire list and doing review, for me as a pianist myself and as a musician, is really important. And it's also really important for my students and for their parents and their families, so that when someone comes over and says, oh, Allison takes piano lessons, can you play something? They have things they can play. So we want to work on that because that's the fun of it. The fun of it is when you can actually really play something. So I want to make sure they really enjoy that, and that means review is important. And a lot of times when I was a student, I used to think that was just a waste of time. It was always about learning the new piece, learning the harder piece, going ahead, getting something else done. And so I didn't do that when I was a student. And this is the infographic one of the infographic I was talking about, which is also free on the website, is 7 ways to establish good practice habits. So one is the most important day to practice is the day of your lesson. So if I have a student this afternoon and today is Tuesday, I expect my student to go home on Tuesday and before they hit the pillow to at least review for 5 minutes what we went over today, and to do it tomorrow so that that information can get from their short-term memory to their long-term memory. If they set it down on Tuesday and they don't pick it up again until Saturday, they're going to forget a lot of what we did. So I have them have a set time to practice each day and then go and check through it before bed. And I even tell the parents that they have to get out of bed for a minute and go and just look at their book even for 2 minutes and try to review what we did. Let them do that. I also tell them, leave the music on the piano. Leave your sheet open so that you know what you're playing and you don't have to search around for your music, because that's a barrier to practice. And then don't forget about weekends and holidays and Saturdays and Sundays. You still got to practice those days too. And if there's a day when it's impossible to practice because you're traveling, because you're not feeling well, whatever, take some time to do some listening. And that's the other thing, is listen to music on a daily basis when possible. And this is one of the hardest hills I feel like I have to climb with my students, especially nowadays, because I'm old and I grew up in a time when you turned on the radio and there was music on there. Billy Joel was playing Piano Man and Elton John was playing, or you could turn on the classical music station, but nobody listens to that stuff anymore. And a lot of kids, the only music they listen to is video game music. So that's a real thing, you know, when I'll ask kids, you know, what's your favorite song? Some of my kids listen to Taylor Swift, but and that's okay, but it's not super sophisticated, but at least they have something. But a lot of them, they don't have any music that they have around them. It's a different environment. So it's a real effort. I do a Spotify list and I share it with my students and I push them to listen. And I tell them listening is practicing. And I just keep harping on it. And we listen at the lesson. A lot of times I'll pull up videos and stuff like that, so that they get this chance to listen more to music, because it's really, really important. It's a huge shortcut, and it's a make or break thing as far as I'm concerned. And there's one of my little students who I had back in 2017, and I still have her. Okay, so we talked about long-term versus short-term memory, and I learned this when I was learning how to speak Spanish. That I would learn a phrase, and if I would learn boda means wedding, and I didn't think about it for a couple of days, I would forget. But if I would remember it later that day and then look it up again the next day and call it to memory, all of a sudden I would remember things. And then I noticed with my students too, if they would remember things that day and later, they would get that information from this side to that side or whatever side it is, that they would remember it better. And I noticed with my flute playing now, which I've been doing for a whole 8 days, that there's kind of this thing, and you know, you don't remember when you learn something. So it's kind of interesting to be learning something new. Like, okay, so today I learned how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And it sounds pretty good. And when I put the flute up, I can get that note. Tomorrow, when I pick it up, it takes me a little time to get that note. So it's almost like I go here, and then the next day, it's just like I'm not quite there. So I might go here. So if I start skipping days, it goes down. So I talk to my students about that too. So anything that you do where you're also learning and you're on some kind of learning journey, for me, it helps for them to see me also learning and practicing and being a human being that's also struggling with all the same things they are. And then as far as stickers, prizes and treats, I don't do it. I didn't grow up with it. My teachers didn't do it, so it never like dawned on me to do it. And I know there's a lot of studies. There's a study, I think, out of Stanford where they took a whole bunch of kindergarten students who love to draw, and they had them draw every day. And then they started giving half the class a gold sticker every time they drew something, and the other half of the class they didn't. And I guess by the time the study was through, the kids who got the gold stickers only wanted to draw if they got the gold stickers, and if they didn't get the stickers, they didn't really enjoy it so much anymore. So that's just one study. If it works for you, that's good. You can always take what you like and leave the rest for any of these webinars, but I'm kind of a minimalist, so I don't do those things. I think the prize is in doing it. You know, you can play, that's the reward for me, but it's up to you. Okay, instead I do the musician mindset. I have them appreciate the beauty of music. I love to hear other musician plays. Like I said, I use a lot of YouTube videos. I love Johan Kim. He's a jazz player out of Korea. He's really good. Peter Benz is really cool. He does all the pop songs with all the prepared piano stuff, and you know, Despacito and some other stuff that he does. The kids really like to hear that. He's a fabulous concert artist who found his niche doing this. You know, we'll pull up some of the great classical pianists and let them listen to that, and just some other instruments too, other types of music, weird stuff, different genres, just so they can hear that. I play for them all the time. I do. At recitals, I'll play. I'll usually bring in a special guest and do some accompanying because I'm more of an accompanist, but I play for them at the lessons. With my advanced students who are getting good now, I had to go revisit this book that I had in high school, so I want to make sure that whatever they're playing, I can play it all the way through really well, and I revisit all the little problems I had with it when I was learning it. If it's a new piece that I don't know, I learn it and I make sure I know it, so we do that. And then taking stock of just how far we're getting. And you know, sometimes just sitting down and writing, look at how much you did this year. Look at your book. You went through 3 method books. That's over 100 pages of music that you did in 6 months. And parents like, wow, that's really great. So that's kind of the end of that. And then it says, with all of these great tips, you should be all set, right? But it doesn't always work. Sometimes no matter what you do, they just don't practice. They just don't like it. You know, and that happens sometimes. And sometimes they don't practice. And so part 3 is why kids don't practice and what to do about it. So we have the practice checklist. Does the student have a good instrument at home? That's a big deal. I mean, if you have the worst piano, and a lot of us found out this during COVID, when we heard what our students were playing on, my tech said he got so much business during COVID because teachers were all, like aghast at some of the instruments kids were playing on at home. So that makes a difference. If you don't have a good instrument, you're never going to sound good. So that makes a difference. And making sure they have adequate time to practice. Are they in so many activities that there just is no time? And I know that we all struggle with that. Every single teacher I know gets really challenged, annoyed, frustrated. I don't get annoyed, but by the fact that sports in our culture really takes precedent over what we're doing, even though we'll probably be, in that with them much longer than they will be playing a sport. So anyway, and also family support, like I said, the piano not being in the TV room, not having siblings that are annoyed with practicing. I drove my brothers crazy with it, but that's really important. And then these are the top reasons for not practicing. And in my experience, the main reason my students don't practice is they can't read music. They struggle with music notation. And I was like this too. I love to play by ear, but when you have to open up a book and you look at something like this and it looks like just a bunch of little black dots on a page and you can't read fluently, your brain is going to tell you to go clean the bathroom, to clean out your closet, to jog a mile, to do anything, or try to sit there and do that. So sometimes that's like I have to go back to that remediation and just make sure they can read the music so that when they go to practice it, they can, because not being able to read the music makes it really tedious and frustrating for them to practice. So if your kids aren't practicing, or your adults, check. I mean, can they read? Sometimes you don't know. Like some kids have such good ears, some people that it almost seems like they are reading the music, but maybe they're not. And so you want to go back and give them some sight reading or just throw some stuff in front of them and see how they can do it. And then going back to the website, there's tons of reading remediation because I've needed it over the years, so I published it. But anyway, that's what I take care. To check on the ability to cipher music notation, especially regarding transfer students, because some of them just didn't really learn that. They don't know how to read well, so we remediate that as needed. Sometimes they don't know how to practice or what to practice, or they're not practicing carefully. And here's a scary thought. You can spend lots of time practicing the piano and get worse. If you practice mistakes, wrong rhythms, and bad technique, you're going to get mistakes, wrong rhythm, and bad techniques. So this is like an example of how I do my my notebook when we do that. So I'll tell them exactly what to do. So they're going to practice their scales, begin at the quarter note, gets 80. We're going to just tell exactly how many times to do it, what you're going for. Chopin, practice your right hand, careful articulation. Just be really, really very pointed and specific about what you want them to do. And then a lot of times we just go over it at the lesson. Show me how you're going to practice this. Show me what you're going to do. And I can remember my teacher once, ooh, that's not good, doing that to me. And he said, show, what are you going to practice? And I started practicing, and he said, no, the first thing you should be doing is looking in your book to find out what you're supposed to practice. So before leaving my studio, I want to be sure, or online, because half my studio is online, I want to be sure that my students understand what to do. I want them to repeat the instructions. What are you doing? We do a quick practice rehearsal. I communicate with parents. If it's with younger students, this is what we're doing, and have them keep on track. And a lot of times I just write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and have them check off and write down which day, how much they practice that day, or what they practice on particular days. And then I always do this. I take my books, and there's always tabs on the pages, so they can just easily flip to whatever they're working on. It's right there. And they have, for the stuff I print out, from my website, they have a binder, everything's organized, because organization is like half the battle. If you can easily get it, you're good. Okay. So sometimes they're just not in the habit of practicing daily, and that can do with placement of the piano in the home. Like I was saying, sometimes it's not in a good place. It's, I had one student say his keyboard was in the closet and he couldn't get it out. Well, obviously he's not going to practice. So you want to make sure that it's accessible. It's someplace they can go practice. And if they can't practice, if they haven't been practicing at all and they're just falling off the wagon, I tell them just go sit at the piano for 5 minutes every day this week. If you feel like playing something, play it, but at least discipline yourself. Go there, sit there for 5 minutes every day. So they start to get there, and then we just work our way into it little by little. And then be prepared, have realistic expectations, be prepared for peak and valleys. Sometimes, everybody gets into slumps, even us. And I had a student come off of like a 6-month slump, like he just was doing nothing. I don't even know what happened to this kid. And then all of a sudden, you know, I gave him something and he got back on track and he's been back on track ever since. So I don't know what was going on with his life, but he, you know, he assured me he wanted to continue. So I try to have a lot of patience. It's a 10-year project at minimum. I mean, I've been playing since I was 12, so that's 40 years, no, 50. Um, so, you know, and I still don't feel like I play that well when we come right down to it. So anyway, so be prepared to change lanes when necessary. I had a student recently online, just wasn't getting it with the Red Easy Classics Moderns book, wasn't liking it. Gave him Martha Meyer, Jazz, Rags, and Blues. He likes that. Yeah, I'm gonna get him back into the classics, but you know, I needed to change lanes right now. If I kept on hitting him with Bach, I was gonna lose him. So I know we'll get there, but I gotta do that. And sometimes, you know, take a break from the current course, but don't take a break from piano study. I never let my students take breaks. You cannot take a break. You don't take a summer break. You don't take a break for 6 months to do sports. You don't take breaks. And I explain to parents that taking a break in piano world is not good because you're going to go backwards. You're going to feel frustrated when you come back. And I tell them, honestly, I can't run a business with people who are going to take breaks all the time. So we don't take breaks. I give them, they have to do 6 out of the 10 summer weeks, and then they have to come to all, they get 3 lessons that they can miss during the year. But we don't say, well, I'm kind of tired of piano, so I'm going to take a break. I'm just honest with people, and I've never had a problem. And then sometimes students are bored, burnt out, or stressed, and we gotta realize that. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all teach in the classroom, but my classroom teacher friends say they're having a really tough time these days in most of the public school classrooms. So if the teachers are coming out bored, burned out, and stressed, being in the classroom all day with the chaos, we know that our kids, by the time we get them at the end of the day, a lot of times they're stressed when they come to piano. So the last thing I want to do is make my students feel more stressed. So I like to use a lot of humor, give them a lot of energy, you know, just make sure they feel comfortable with me, that I'm just a nice teacher. I really am not all about, you know, and I'm sure most of you guys are too, because almost all the teachers that I'm friends with are just really nice. We want results, but we're not there to make the kids more stressed. We want this to be someplace that it's the best 30 minutes of their week. They just can't wait to get to see us. You know, they wouldn't want to miss their lesson. And then these are some of my motivational twos. We're coming to the end. YouTube videos, playing for students, duets and ensembles are fun. Online and in-person meetups, we do that. We did a lot of online meetups during COVID, but we still do that. My students are all over the city, so we do that. It's fun when we get together for recital times. We do games. There's a bunch of apps and games. If you want to know which ones I use, I think I have a blog post about that, but I can put something up about that. I had a student that was totally not into practicing, so we pulled up Finale. It's still going, and we did some music composition. He was an online student, and that was fun. My caveat was that you can write the music, but then the next week you have to come back and learn how to play it for me. So I would doctor it up a little bit to give him some extra work. Some improvisation, ear training, music theory, live performances are fun. Recitals, for me, are a must, because just for my own motivation, I want to see what I did all year. You know, I want to see what I did this whole semester. It's Christmas time, we do a video online recital. We do a big in-person recital. My out-of-state students Zoom in, and we just do a big recital at the end of the year. It gives me such a boost to see that my work matters, and to see the happy parents and the students dressed up and just all ready to go. I get a nice venue, and it's just, it's good for me, it's good for them. It keeps everybody on their toes. It's really fun. And then sometimes, no matter what you do or how great a teacher you are, she still doesn't practice. And then I ask my students this, you know, if I could wave a magic wand and you could instantly play the piano great without practicing, would you want to? And if the answer is yes, I know I have something to work with. But if the answer is no, then I know it's time to say goodbye. And I'm not going to go into it too much, but there's a blog post on my website, and it's called Time to Say Goodbye. And it's how I let go of students that it's just not working anymore. We've tried everything, we're going backwards. And so I have a real drama-free way of letting kids or adults go that leaves everybody feeling great, happy, and with no problems or drama. So sometimes that's just what you have to do. Not often, but once every couple of years, that kind of happens to me. So then this is the little, my little thing about my website. I have loads of sheet music and resources at Paloma Piano. This is some of what we have: method books, printable games, all kinds of stuff, holiday music. This was 340 downloads. I think now we're up to 370 or 380. And let's see if I can show you my website. If I do this, and then we're on Zoom, and we get rid of this, and I go here on my notes, and I can go here, and this is what it looks like. Now, if you have questions in the chat, we're going to take those in a minute. And where am I? Library. So here's our library. So this stuff is all free. So if you're
Hey,
not a free
Doreen,
member,
Doreen, we're not seeing the website right now. We're just seeing the presentation
you're just
that you
seeing the
have.
presentation.
I think you might have shared the page with the presentation on it. You probably need to unshare and then reshare your desktop or reshare the,
Okay, so what do you see now?
we see the or we see the presentation. It says here's a look at our new website.
Here's a look at our new website. All right, let's see. I'm not sure how to do
Why
this.
don't you try opening it in that application? Just go create a new, I don't know if you can do that or not. No, it doesn't. That's a PDF file, so we're just seeing the PDF viewer.
Because I have to, you know what, I probably have to unshare and reshare.
Yeah, probably need to unshare and then instead of sharing the application, share your screen.
Close current tab. Do I want to do that? No, I just want to unshare. Stop share. Let's stop the share. Let's go ahead and share.
Yep.
And I'll share my desktop now. Now do you see my desktop?
Yes, we can see it now.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Sorry about that. I think I know everything about Zoom and then I don't. All right. So now we can go here. Now do you see it?
Yes, we do.
All right. So
Great. Perfect.
the library's here and you can look at all this stuff. You don't have to, you know, all the free music, you sign up and you get all the free music and games. What is there? 71 results. So there's 71 things you can get on here. All the games are free. A bunch of the music is free. It's set up so you can take a look at everything. It's all nicely engraved. And that's all, just all the free stuff. I put up free stuff there at least probably once a month, just different new free things, or I change the freebie for the month and just give people free stuff. And then if you love the free stuff and you feel like, wow, I wish I had the other stuff, you can go here. We have all our essential solos and duets. Some of these are stuff I've written. Some of it, like this stuff, is stuff I've just re-engraved to make it bigger and more easily readable so that you would just have it at your fingertips and you can get it. And that's all there. And we have, I don't know, 232 results there. Everything can be filtered on the sidebar if you want to look just for, I don't know, piano solos, and then you say, well, I'm looking for intermediate, it'll give you that. And then if you go back to the library, there is essential method books and materials. That's where I have like all the scale pages and composer manuscript books and stuff like that, and the petite little primer, and then the stuff I was talking about, like first 4B4, and this is bass clef reading, let's learn chords, etudes with attitudes are jazz etudes, jazzy etudes, learn to read lead sheets. So all these things I put together, use them with my students, lots of teachers has used them. Once you pay your monthly fee, everything is just, you just download as much as you need. As long as you're a member, you get everything, the price never goes up. And then the blog is here. You don't have to sign in or anything to read the blog, but that's all free here. So there's lots of free stuff, and that's all I'm going to talk about there. And I'm going back to unshare this. And then I'm going back to share here. And back to my desktop. And now I don't need this. I don't know. Am I going to be able to see this PDF?
Yes, you can.
Notes? No, I don't need that. I don't know why I'm having trouble with this. Not either. Where am I going?
Just go to the practice webinar page or the tab up there.
Yeah, okay. There it is. So let me cancel something here.
Hit cancel on that. Then you can hit close that tab and then go to the other one.
Oh, here it is.
There you go.
Okay. And I'll maximize that. Thank goodness for my husband. So right now we're just running this out, and Stuart's going to put that link in the chat. I'll also, I can also send you that I'll link it in email for the next 24 hours. Essentials, $12.99 a month. That means that everything in the Essential Library for $12.99 a month, you can download all of it, make as many copies as you want, and send it for your students, everything like that. For as long as you're a member, you can just get everything. And for the premium, it's $17.99 a month. There's also a yearly fee, which is $129 and $179. So the Essential comes down to less than $10 a month. But you're not locked in. You can quit anytime. I'm not like one thing I signed up for. I've been having such a time getting out of it. You can always pause or cancel your membership, whatever. The only thing is, if, like, we don't want you to sign on, download everything, and then leave. That doesn't really help us out. If you sign up before midnight tonight, you're going to get the Parent's Guide to Education, which is a book I wrote all about what piano lessons are all about, little guide for parents, and then some studio lesson notes. Those are just a free onboarding package. So now it's time for Q&A. Do we have any Q&A, Stuart?
Not really. We haven't had a lot coming in. One question that I have is, could you explain the different levels of membership? I know you said there's a free level that
Okay,
gets
so
some
the free
things, but
level,
what does the essential level have in
the
compared to the
essential
premium?
level includes all of the solos and duets. So, all the like 252 piano solos and duets, plus the essential resources, which is like the composer's manuscript book and the scale pages and the theory and different things like that. So you get a lot of the essential. The free membership is free. I do want your email, so I can send you what's new, and like if you're a free member, when something new free comes out, I'll send you an email letting you know what new is free. Of course, we do hope you'll upgrade because that's what keeps us going. But I've had free members that have been on free for like 10 years and they're still free. So there's not like you have to put your credit card in and then whatever. It's just perpetually free. If you like it, share it. If you want to upgrade, that's great. That's really good. So does anybody have any other questions about practicing? You can type those into the chat.
Okay, let me just go. There were a couple things that came up along the way. One of the things was, oh, Adrian, she said, I'm a traveling teacher and I've been asked if I can bring a piano with me to the house. She commented on that when you were talking about people with no pianos. I thought that was funny.
Okay, so this is probably what I would do if I had that question because, like I said, things have changed since COVID. Before COVID, I had no problem getting tons of students. It was just like I was at a full schedule. And I noticed that since COVID, things have kind of changed. I mean, inflation, blah, blah, blah. It's not as good as it used to be. And first and foremost, we're musicians, but second most, or maybe equally most, we're business people. We have to earn a living. So what I would do is if you have a keyboard you could bring, I would tell them I can bring it for the first 4 weeks, but the expectation is that this student needs something they can practice at home. Like I said, I use my first 4 before program, and that shows you, what to do each week, but they're gonna need to be able to practice at home. So as long as you make it clear that I could bring a keyboard, but you're gonna have to get something within this parameter. I have a fold-out keyboard, it's not great, but there's even things that you could do off the page, things that you don't even need a keyboard for. Thinking it through, I might say, well, I can do some musical activities with your child, before that point, and just make that expectation that you would have 4 weeks to get a keyboard, and then link them to the posts and everything that they need to be able to practice at home. So even if I could bring a piano, and then just give them some resources about where to get a piano. And let me tell you this, I just had a student get a free Young & Chang piano. Okay, it's Young & Chang, but it was a nice Young & Chang. It wasn't one of the bad ones. Beautiful, grand, well-maintained. She got it for free because her dad was a house inspector and he saw it and he said, what are you doing with the piano? And they said, oh, we're just going to put it on auction. And he was like, well, my daughter plays. And they're like, you can have it. So one of the things you want to tell them is, ask everyone you know. There's a lot of people out there. There's ways to get pianos. So don't let that be, I wouldn't let that be a barrier if I wanted to take the student.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm actually going to share my screen top right now. This is Stuart speaking again, but I just wanted to share. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to share with you is, for instance, when you go to the website, one of the things that you can see here is that everything is searchable. Like for instance, if you're on the blog post page, um, and you're interested, one of the questions that came up is, what happened to all of the blog posts that were on the pianoparents.net website? That website went down a while ago, but all of those blog posts are in this parents category on the blog post page. Okay. So if you go to palomapiano.com/blog and you want to find the ones that were on pianoparents.net, those are all under the parents category. So you can find those all there. So I figured I would answer that question while I was at it. Okay,
And
I'll
then
unshare.
put the link to the membership in the chat in case anybody's interested.
Yes, I did. Actually, maybe I ought to stay on the share. Let's do that again. Okay, and I'll take you to that page. Okay, so in the in the chat, I had shared the link to the specials. If you are interested in joining, the specials are on this page. It's called Limited Time Membership Offer. And this basically just walks you through the two different levels. These are half off right now for the next for this webinar. And so you can subscribe to either a monthly, which is only $13 a month, or $130 a year. If you pay annual, you get 2 months for free. That's literally half off the price that we have for the essential. And the same thing with our premium monthly and annual membership. For only $18 a month, you can have anything on the site. And if you want a couple months free, you can pay it as an annual as well. Once again, if
I
you
see.
sign up and you decide it's not for you, you can cancel at any time.
Yeah, I have a few more questions that I see everybody answered. Lori Gray said, just wanted to say thank you for your resources. It's so helpful. Lori's a member. Every time I go, I find something new and helpful, and she's been one of our members for a while. So thank you, Lori. I see a thank you. I see signing off now, blah, blah, blah. Many parents approach to piano lessons like dance class, soccer, or practice at home. I know, that's a thing, but I think even like I noticed with my granddaughters, they are expected to practice dance at home, and they should. So we just need to educate them about that and just keep on it. And it's like swimming. They think you don't need to own your own pool. That's true. You don't need to own your own pool if you go to swimming. But we need to educate them because that's just, they don't know. We don't know stuff about other things. And, it's just, we're in piano world all the time and people just need to be educated. A lot of people, that's one of the questions, do I need a piano? So
So what are you going to be doing with the recording of this webinar? We have about 4 minutes left. So.
Okay. So yeah, if anybody wants a recording, go ahead and email me. You can always email us through the website or at support@palomapiano.com. And I think we're set. We can tips on how to get parents involved. Okay, thanks, Chris. My biggest tip about how to get parents involved is that I try to talk to them a lot. I text them. I have an open door policy where they're allowed to sit in on lessons. I encourage them to sit in on lessons. I regularly email them with like at least once every couple of weeks, what's going on in the studio. Definitely try to get them involved. And again, that's also managing expectations. When I did my pianoparents.net blog, I take on way too many things. That's one of my problems. I had a much bigger expectation of parents really caring that much about it. And I think a lot of parents are just super busy and they're not necessarily that involved in piano and they don't really know. They just kind of know if their kids like it and are making progress. So I just try to keep them informed of what they're doing, always calling to mind like, oh, look at this, she just learned this piece, or look at this, he's doing this. So just to keep educating them, talk to them, being friendly, letting them know they can call me anytime if they have any kind of problem. The other thing is I'm really careful about how I communicate with parents. Texting is for my lessons at 3, I have to cancel, changing lesson times and things like that. Anything more serious than that that's going on, I'm gonna pick up the phone and call you. If there's some kind of an issue going on or your student isn't practicing or I had some kind of problem at the lesson with with whatever it was, then I'm gonna pick up the phone and call. But I just, recitals are helpful too because parents love to see their kids playing recitals and that's it. But a lot of it is managing expectations. I have 5 sons. I don't know how many people know that. And then my nephew lived with us. So most of them all took music lessons except for my middle son who said he wished he was in a sports family. But, I can tell you I wasn't that involved. I brought them to their lessons and once they got to a certain age, I kind of expected them to do it on their own. So, I don't know. I think it's just trying to manage all of that.
All right, very good. I didn't see any other questions. We have about 1 minute left, so now's probably a good time for us to wrap it up.
Okay, that sounds good. I hope everybody has a really great teaching day. And I hope to see you again on the next webinar, which will be coming up soon. If you're not a member and you want to know what's going on and when the next events are coming and what the new freebies are, just go to palomapiano.com and sign up as a free member if you're not already a free member. And if you want
and any questions,
you get the
any questions that you have, you can also contact us at support@palomapiano.com.
I get questions all the time. People email me with questions. I'm happy to answer. And sometimes I ask you guys questions too, because I certainly don't know it all. But if you sign up today, you will get the parents book and you will get the practice sheets. That's a free onboarding thing. So in the next 24 hours, you would get that as well.
All right, great. Thank you, Doreen. That was a great webinar.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you,
coming.
everybody, for attending. Everybody have a great rest of your teaching day.
You guys too. All right, bye.